We're talking to Mike Score today of A Flock of Seagulls. String Theory is the upcoming release, and I want you to preview a whole lot of this album. We've already seen the first video, heard the first song, which is the orchestral version of Say You Love Me, is already out. Of course, there was Ascension 3 years ago. And right. Getting a reminder of that, going through that last night and listening kind of A-B, going back from the originals and back and forth. So that's a whole nother round here. And I've been listening in a couple of your other interviews about the inspiration for this, but detail for me, why the songs that are going to be on this one? Why did you want to do another round with the orchestra?
Well, it really wasn't our idea. August Day, that's their like speciality. They did the first one, they did the Ascension one. And then they came to us and said, there's still a bunch of songs basically that we think would be great with the orchestra. Will you do another one? So we talked about it. We picked some songs and we said, yeah, it's your speciality. It's your project. We'll do our part. And then it's up to you because that's your thing. You know what I mean? So we came to my studio where I'm sitting in now. And the thing is, because it happened during the pandemic, we didn't really get together. It was all done in separate places. A lot of it was done here. As much as possible was done here in my studio in Liverpool. And then it was taken off and the orchestra was put on it. And, it was mixed and stuff like that. And we just got to hear it as it came from them. And to me, it sounds better than Ascension. I like it better than Ascension. So I'm quite happy with it. Yeah.
I know you were mentioning, I think it was the Mitch Lafon interview I was listening to about the quality of the songwriting, of your songwriting. I think, and correct me if I'm quoting this wrong, but that the songs that are on this one were from, like, as you advance as a songwriter, as you go through life as a musician, and that kind of helps with how they sound now, that it comes across better. Is that part of the reason, or is there additional reasons why they sound better on String Theory?
I think it's because, my songwriting is, I would say, has more emotion in it. Whereas, the first Seagulls album, it was mostly about sci-fi, because you don't have to show emotion in sci-fi. It's like, oh, I'm a robot. But as I've progressed, I think as my songwriting has become more personal, and I think that lends itself better to orchestral moods and stuff like that. So I think I think it sounds better to me because the songs are newer to me. And, I'm not looking back 40 years. I'm only looking back 20, 25 years. So to me, as it did in the original band, there was an escalation. And I think that with the orchestral stuff too, it's an escalation. The first orchestral was the first stuff we did. This is the next stuff we did. And therefore I'm a bit closer to it,
Mm-hmm. Right. Why these particular songs, if you go through maybe the track list of why they were selected in particular for String Theory?
The songs that I liked, there were certain songs that August Day, it was their project really. So they kind of chose the songs and they came to me and I would kind of go, yeah, I like that one. That's going to be great. A couple of them, like say, Remember David, I wasn't sure about, but it's also, it was time to let someone else do what they do with your song. In the end, I could have just gone, no, I don't like it. It's not going on the album. But everything kind of fell into place. It was like dominoes, it was like, okay, that's slightly a strange song. It's being kind of rearranged for the orchestra. Oh yeah, it does sound great. So, and to me, Say You Love Me, when I was listening to that and seeing the video for the first time, I was like, wow, this is way better than I thought it could be. I love the video. I think it's brilliant. Considering that, personally, I had nothing to do with the video. It was August Day that said, we want to make a video. Of course, I did, they came and did the filming at my studio, and then they took it off and got the dancers in and basically made it a nice little story, and I was like, wow, that turned out brilliant. I was made up with it.
Why is Say You Love Me as the first first promoted song from the album?
I think it's very accessible. I think it's very friendly. I think uh, it's a real pop song. You know what I mean? It's like it catches your ear. I mean, a couple of the guys, other people that I know, they heard it and they went, "Wow, I can't get that song out of my head. I've only heard it twice." You know, so obviously, when they were August Day were choosing for the video, they probably polled a few people in the office or whatever, who said, "Yeah, that's going to be a great song." You know, I don't know what's coming next. I'm personally moved on to other projects, so everything that comes from that now is a surprise.
Nice. Have you gotten much feedback from either associates, Flock of Seagulls fans, anyone on the orchestration of Say You Love Me, on the video? What feedback have you gotten since this has all gone public over the past several weeks?
I haven't had anything bad. You know, nobody's said anything bad about it. Some people have actually got onto me and go, "Have you seen the video?" And I think they're going to say it's terrible, and I go, "Yeah, I like it. What do you think?" And they're like, "It's great. It suits the song so well, and it's simple. You know, it's not overblown. It's just nice and simple, and the song sounds great with an orchestra." You know, and I'm just like, "Whoo, thank God." You know,
It does. No, it really does look good. I was impressed watching the video as well. The whole interpretive dance thing and
yeah.
the back and forth, the interplay between the man and the woman. Where was the video shot?
Probably, to tell you the truth, the parts where I'm singing was shot right here in Liverpool. The rest, I have no idea because it was done by August Day. They sent it and said, "Look, we've made a video. What do you think?" And of course, I loved it. You know, so I just was like, "You just go ahead. You've got a handle on this. Do your thing." You know, and they're doing it.
Yeah, it came across really well. Of all the songs that are on String Theory, which one, how do I phrase it? Not necessarily most pleasantly surprised you, but when you came out on the other end with the orchestral arrangement, which one did you go, "Wow, I'm really impressed by how this developed into something different"?
Like I say, remember David caught me, a little bit. Like I say, I can't, to tell you the truth, remember all the songs on it now because it's a while since I listened back to it. Like I say, my head's into other songs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I was just pleasantly surprised by the way the whole thing had stepped up. Say You Love Me obviously stood out. Remember David. They all fit together, I think, nicely. Even if there's the ones that at the time I was like, I'm not sure, but because of the orchestration making the carry through it, you know what I mean? Making them all sound like a set of songs. It's just, for me, it's just pleasant, to go. There's nothing here that stands out as being wrong. It all fits together nicely and flows. And so when I hear that, that's when I go, no, just leave it to them. They know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, you don't stick your finger in the pudding, you'll ruin it. That kind of thing. So,
and what artistic, I mean, what did work specifically did you do in the studio? What parts? I mean, obviously the singing, clearly, but which artistic parts, like how that back and forth with them doing the orchestration and that. So how does that process work between that one, what you did on Ascension? Of course, I know there were members of the original lineup involved with that. How does that, all the back and forth, the yin and yang of that go?
Basically, the orchestral arrangement was done with me working on the songs with the arranger, right, in my studio. And then he took my ideas, linked them together with his interpretation of what an orchestra would do, because I don't think like an orchestra. He does, because he's worked with orchestras all his life. So there's certain things that he would go, that's not really going to work in this kind of situation. Whereas, for lead guitar, that might work easily, but for an orchestra, no. So you kind of have to trust each other and do well, can we do a bit more like this then, and then a bit less of that over there? So you kind of work it out. Then he mocks it up on a synth, and you listen to it, and then you kind of start to get an understanding of what the orchestra would do on the song. I mean, I would have loved to have been there when the orchestra did it, but knowing me, I would have been going, what about that? That's got to be that. Change that. I want this. So that would be like sticking your finger in the plum pie. It's like,
right.
Don't do it. So it was actually a good thing that I wasn't there, but I did have input on the kind of arrangement, and then they just send it to you. And of course, when you hear it in its full glory, you can't say it's rubbish, because you've actually worked on it and you've got an idea what's coming. But an orchestra doing an orchestral thing, it can really just like lay on you, and you just go, it just sounds great, it just sounds fantastic. And of course, in the first place, the songs weren't written for orchestras, they were written for synths and stuff. So to have that complete other angle coming at you is quite, because you've never thought of it in the first place, it's quite a surprise, and you kind of go, wow, that really lends itself, that part or this or that, or I can hear why an orchestra does it like that and a band does it like this. So, we did parts, we did some guitars and synths, and then the orchestra laid on top of that. And it's an orchestral album, so a lot of the, you might say, heavier work from band gear was smoothed away, and it just left nice landscapes, nice orchestral landscapes, and it gives it a little bit more softer approach. It's hard to explain, but
right,
I'm trying.
With an aesthetic, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, if there is one, non-song of yours, so non-Flock of Seagulls, non-solo, non-song of yours, now that you've gone through the process of orchestrating band songs, do you go, wow, there's this song, maybe legendary pop song, legendary rock song, where you go, that song could get a really good orchestral treatment. I'd like to hear this, pick whatever song by whatever other artist. Is there one that stands out to you? You go, I kind of wish an orchestra would do a version of that.
I haven't really thought in that direction. But I now understand ELO way more than I did when they were out, what
right.
he was probably getting at. And since getting into the orchestral thing with Ascension and listening to ELO, because I did listen to ELO and go, they were orchestral. What did they do? I want to, because it was a whole new angle. And now I'm a huge ELO fan, because the stuff that they did, was that 45 years ago? Yeah. To orchestrate their songs was incredible. They did have the band aesthetic, they have the orchestra aesthetic. I think what we're doing takes the orchestral side of it a little bit further. But songs with a full orchestra, I'd really have to think on that,
Yeah.
So.
Now, having gone through the project with the new music you're working on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've got a Flock of Seagulls album and a solo album, or at least projects, I should say, coming up? Okay. Did you find going through Ascension and string theory and all the back and forth arranging, does that evolve, or did that evolve your approach to arranging, songwriting, instrumentation choices, any of that, now that you've gone through all of that musical process?
I'm sure subconsciously it is, because I do kind of think now, this section would be great with an orchestra, or violins. I'd love to hear some things here.
Right.
But essentially, I'm a synth player, mm-hmm. And as a songwriter, I tend to just mess around with sounds until it all seems to come together. but I really don't sit there and try and dissect my new songs as how they're going to be in the future. I'm sure August Day will.
Probably, yes.
Uh,
Totally see that.
and because that's my style of writing, I think it does lend itself to orchestral arrangement. I think it's just some of the chords I use when I'm playing synth may have, because I'm not a trained piano player or anything like that. I just play what I think sounds good. And some of that may be orchestral in some way that I don't know about. Subconsciously, I may be picking up things and going, yeah, I can have a little violin thing going on here. In fact, I have written a couple of songs that have, they're just ideas. They're not real songs yet, but they do have a violin lead line instead of a guitar.
Okay, good.
So I guess, yeah, it is. It's influencing me somewhat. Yeah.
Very cool. Those new projects, how are they coming along? What's the musical direction of each one?
The Seagulls one, which doesn't really have a name, and it's kind of weird because I don't write songs that sound the same all the time. I tend to bounce around, and I'll write something that's a bit more electronic, and something that's a bit more synthetic, and something that's a bit more guitar driven and stuff like that. So I've probably got about halfway through what I would now call the next Seagulls album, because there's some really good pop songs on it, a couple of strange songs that kind of lean towards the first Seagulls album a little bit. So that one about halfway through, and then the second project is based on the fact that when I was a kid, I wanted to be a spaceman. So these are songs that don't necessarily fit with the Seagulls format, but they're sci-fi inspired, And at the moment, it's called Space Boy because the first song I wanted to do on it is called Space Boy. So it's about me pretending that I'm coming to Earth for the first time as a space boy. So I've got maybe 6 songs for that and a couple of other ideas. It may be a solo. I may just put them both out as Seagulls albums. I don't know. But it's a long time. People have always said to me, why don't you use the name of Flock of Seagulls when you release stuff? And I've always said, because to me, it doesn't fit that format. And then suddenly I wrote 3 or 4 songs that did fit that format. And I was like, okay, here we go. We're going back down the Seagulls path. And then when people heard it, they were like, you should put this out as a Flock of Seagulls. So that's now where we're at with that,
How do you draw the line between Flock of Seagulls project and a non-Flock of Seagulls project? I know you kind of explained already, but what is the, like, you're the one, you're the core of the band, so of course you would know. How do you know when it tips one side or the other?
You just go by how you feel about it, just I kind of take it like this. If I've written a song, recorded it, and I go, yeah, I could play this live with a Flock of Seagulls, that to me it's a Seagulls song. If it's a song like Space Boy, then I kind of go, it's not really, it needs its own thing. It's not Seagulls driven, and Seagulls fans may not latch to this, but I do in a different way. Therefore, although it's, because it's me, it's got the core of a Flock of Seagulls. It's just maybe a little bit too left field to what I feel is Seagulls driven, But as we go on and record, everything seems to be kind of melding into each other, So some of the left field ones, I'm like, I could do this live with a Flock of Seagulls and people would love it because I love it,
Right.
So I can only base what Seagulls fans would like on what I like because I'm writing it, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if they like what I've done before, they'll probably like what I'm doing now.
Um, I was very pleased when you guys came up with that sort of how-to video a few years ago for Iran, the breakdown. I thought more bands really should be doing this. Those of us that are really curious about the individual parts, and sometimes you get the stems. That's awesome if you can find them, but not every song has those. And I was
Right.
glad to see that. Like, okay, if I really wanted to break this down, I can stop, rewind, stop, rewind. What? Why did you guys decide? Why did you guys, in particular, be the ones to decide? Hey, we're going to show you how to play the song we did.
It just came up. We were making the video for Ascension and doing the interviews, and we were in a studio in Liverpool, and that idea just came up. It was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you showed how to play Iran, on the keyboard and stuff like that, or what I did. And so it was like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it right now. And 10 minutes later, it was done. So it wasn't really anything that we thought of. It was just like, oh, we had a break and, somebody said that. And it was like, cool, let's do it. Like, we got the cameras, we got the fingers, we got the keyboards. Let's do it. And it was done and in the can before you knew it. So it wasn't really a conscious decision. It was, sometimes as you go along, things just happen. And that was one of them.
Right. I'm glad you did that. That was a good addendum to the pop canon to actually be able to see the real people doing that
Yeah.
in the studio. So thank you for doing that. Last question, looking way down the road, then, because you're being in the midst of two projects that aren't finished. So of course we'll ask the follow-up to that. So whenever they are done, and before I finish the question, is there an approximate release date on these projects?
I'm hoping that we'll have a Seagulls single out before the album's finished, and it's either going to be November-ish, early December, or something like February. Okay. The albums will probably be done, both of them, right after Christmas. And as for release dates, how they're going to be released, I'm not sure yet. I like to get them finished and then have it and go, okay, now I'm on to my next step. I don't like to think too much and then go, oh, it's going to be out November the 4th. And then November the 4th comes along and you're like, well, we haven't finished it. So.
Right, yeah, exactly. So then where do you see yourself going artistically further down the road? Not necessarily particular projects, but what kind of pace do you want to work at? What kind of projects between touring, music creation there in your room in the studio? What do you see yourself doing beyond that, going down the road?
Obviously, I probably will never stop writing songs. I've kind of gotten into video a little bit, so maybe I'll do some weird videos because I don't know what I'm doing till I find out. I'm getting more into like production and stuff like that as I learn more about the equipment, but I'm not particularly interested in being, say, a producer. I'm learning it for my own stuff, and I hope that I can it really capture people's emotions with my songs. And that's the way I've been pushing for the last couple of years, not being afraid to say things that mean something to people that they can connect with, because it can be quite difficult writing a song and then having to put it out there for everybody to go, yeah, you're an idiot, or something like that, or wow, I love that song. I mean, some of my songs are going to touch on things that other people haven't touched on. It's emotionally, which is actually the first single that might come off the Seagulls album, is like that. And I'm hoping that a lot of people feel that, because they understand what it's about. It's for me, when I write the song, it's just emotional for me. And I'm like, okay, this is great, blah, blah, blah. And then as I distance myself from it, as other songs come up, I start to think, if I felt that, other people will relate that as well. And they'll start to understand what I'm saying as a writer and as a person. It, it's like certain songwriters in certain genres are very harsh. And I want to be 180 degrees from that. I want to be very soft and have people relate to real feelings.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's going to be a lot to listen to going down the road, starting with String Theory. Looking forward to hearing the whole album. Say You Love Me already can listen to it and watch it. Mike, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time today to chat about all of these projects. It's a fascinating thing you're doing with Flock of Seagulls and these orchestral arrangements. So thanks for taking time. And we're looking forward to all this new content coming from you in the next few weeks and months or so.
Right. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.